Welcome everyone, my name is Jordan Boyd Graver. This is a re-release of a live stream from December 15th from my CMSC 470 course. We had some early technical issues with our sound, and so this is correcting those issues by providing this introduction from Jordan from the future. CMSC 470 is the computational linguistics course for undergraduates at the University of Maryland. In what has become a tradition, at the end of the course, students have built systems that can answer questions. And during the final exam period, instead of the students answering questions in a crowded classroom, we see if their systems can answer questions better than some pretty smart people. The last time we did this, we had some former Jeopardy champions come on, and those former Jeopardy champions won against the systems, and I think we've seen some progress in the last couple of years in both the technology and the skills of our students, so this will be an exciting match. So let's hear a little bit from the students about the systems that they put together. The runner-up, the second best system that students in the course made, was called Quizbert, and I'll let a student from that group describe their project.
Okay, yeah, sure. So Quizbert takes a similar approach to the TF-IDF baseline. We used a SBERT type model, which stands for SentenceBERT, to generate embeddings for every single question in the Canta train set. Then when given a question, we generate an embedding for the question and use cosine similarity to find the top 10 most similar questions in the train set. To determine which of the 10 answers to return, we compute some features like the run length, the number of negatives in the question, etc., and pass it to a logistic regression model. Then we take the top scoring answer as our final answer and buzz if the score is above a threshold.
The winning system, which was quite elegant in the total number of lines of code, was based on OpenAI's GPT-3, and I'll let a member of that team describe that project.
Sure. We used the GPT-3, which is a transformer-based autoregressive language model, and it's pre-trained on massive amount of text from data from the web. We actually are using a somewhat modified version of GPT-3, what we call GPT-3 with prompt retrieval. Essentially, the goal was to instead of using some random question-answer pair, we retrieve like the most similar question-answer pair from our training set, and we use like TF-IDF to encode all the questions, retrieve the most similar questions for each given like test question based on the cosine similarity, and we use that for this particular challenge. And our GPT-3 with prompt retrieval outperformed our GPT-3 base model in like 4 out of 8 data sets, but it does fall short in some categories, specifically like when it comes to common sense reasoning or multi-hop reasoning.
I, Jordan from the future, will say goodbye for now and turn it over to Jordan from December 15th, now that he has audio, and we'll see what happens. Okay, fantastic. So those are the two systems. We've combined them together in a somewhat arbitrary way. So some of the answers will be given by the GPT retrieval system. Some will be provided by Quizbert. And they'll both be displayed in the following way. So you can see the question and the current points. You can also see what the computer is currently thinking. That will be highlighted here. If it has the correct answer, we will censor that so that you can't see it anymore, so the humans can't cheat. But sometimes some information will leak through, so you will know that a particular answer isn't correct. So feel free to use that knowledge to your advantage if you wish. You also see the output of the final. So both of these systems are using logistic regression to decide when to buzz or not. So you will also see that output as well. And you can use that to strategize when to buzz or not. The higher that number, the more likely it is to buzz. Let's introduce our human players. So first off, in alphabetical order, Victoria Gross is a Jeopardy champion, the 2020 bronze medalist at the World Quizzing Championships, and a member of the reigning undefeated champions of America's largest ongoing quiz league, OQL. In her day job, she's a scientific editorial assistant for Biomaterials Journal. So thank you very much for coming. Next up in alphabetical order, Jana Kilter has a PhD in computer science from the Institute of Machine Learning at ETH Zurich, and is currently CTO of a legal tech startup. In his free time, he runs one of the world's largest YouTube channels on machine learning research, and is also a regular co-host on the ever-enjoyable Machine Learning Street Talk podcast. And finally, Juergen Schmidt writes the popular trivia criticism blog The Roger Box and hosts the Recreational Thinking podcast. He was on the winning team in the Trivia Nationals Quiz Bowl competition and has previously defeated Facebook's question answering system at 2019's Efficient QA competition at NeurIPS. So thank you very much to the Humor team for coming.
Okay, so we're adding a twist to this Quiz Bowl game with the introduction of something called Wildcards. And so basically we've got 6 categories of kind of perturbations to questions that we've introduced. So things like changing up the question in, like, we'll add a question in German, so the questions are translated to German and, passed to the models. We've scrambled some of the sentences in a question. We've masked out certain words that make it difficult for the models to predict the right answer. And so there are 6 of these categories. And so any team can choose to use a wild card. They're usable after every 5 questions or 10 questions. And so you can use 2 wild cards per side. So the humans can use 2 wild cards and the computer teams can use 2 wild cards. And so you can just call out wild card. We'll stop the system. We have different questions, 3 per category. And if there's a tie, one of these like wild cards will help break the tie. And so, so we've selected separate questions for those. So those are usable. So let us know if you want to use a wild card after like a batch of 5 questions is passed, and we'll stop the game and use them.
Okay, let's try this. Okay. Tossup number 1. In a contrasting collection to this one, the author notes he especially hates 4 things: tobacco smoke, garlic, bed bugs, and Christ.
20 love poems and a song of despair.
That is incorrect. And that was Quizbert who buzzed in there. Okay, so I will continue reading the rest of the question for the humans. A poem in this collection warns the reader of the time when the cold-leaf annoyance captures your foot in its flight. In its last poem, the author relates the tale of Midas and claims that mine is a secret more pleasant, but even more difficult keeping. This collection's tidal location is said to contain a soul in each object within its sanctified walls in its first poem, which also commands it to tell me, ye stones, and give me a glorious palace's answer. This collection contained 4 poems, which were not published until 1914 due to censorship, and the collection at large was inspired by the author's companion, Christiana Volpus. Published with Venetian epigrams was, for 10 points, what collection of 24 poems reflecting Italy by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe? So buzz in if you know it.
I'm trying to figure it out since we don't have.
Yeah.
Oh.
So,
I have no clue. Sorry.
3 seconds at the end of the question.
All right, I'll just take a guess. There's no penalty for guessing at the end, right? Yeah, Roman elegies.
That is correct.
Good job.
Wait.
All right. So the computer lost 5 points. We're not able to show negative numbers, however. So hopefully that will get corrected very soon, and we can make. Yeah. So what I'll do is I will put 5 points on here, but let's just remember that it's negative.
Okay.
The computer clearly
Okay.
lacks my skill at putting together words roughly synonymous with Italy and poem.
Okay, toss-up number 2. After one ruler of the state died, his corpse was left to rot for 67 days as his sons fought a civil war to gain rulership. This state was the first destination of later Duke Wen of Jin when he was fleeing his brother who sought to kill him. One ruler of the state had an incestuous relationship with his sister Wen Jiang. A ruler of the state was the first of the 5 hegemons in the spring and autumn period. Famed military strategist Jiang Ziya was the first marquis of the state, which lasted from the establishment of the Zhou dynasty until the beginning of the Qin dynasty. For 10 points, name this state, the last to be conquered in the Qin unification of...
She.
And that is correct. All right, so now the score is actually correct, and that is positive 5 points. Okay, toss-up number 3. This province has, thanks to its RCZ starting near Cold Lake, essentially 0 rat infestations. This province...
It's Alberta.
That is correct. And got in just before GPT retrieval. Okay, all right, so toss-up 4. In this town, the Gypsy Moth 4 and Cutty Sark are kept in dry dock as museum ships. Frank Dyson, a director residing in this geographic location, introduced the 6 pips. An important international 0 reference was named for this location.
Greenwich.
That is correct. In a celebration of his 1899 state senate victory, a party on his front porch caused it to collapse. Cheryl Smart Hall's biography contends such an event would normally be covered in the Marion Daily Star, but was not because he owned the paper. That rebuilt porch was later the focus of his run for the presidency, unique in that his opponent was also a newspaper owner, albeit of the much larger Dayton Daily News, James Cox.
I think it's Harding.
Yeah,
Warren G. Harding.
Yeah, he ran against James Cox. Yeah.
Yeah, it just wasn't,
Juergen et al. Found that this functional group could be enantioselectively reduced with the use of triazphosphinium cations. The differing reactions of oxygenation and dehydrogenation, respectively, means that tempo can be used to distinguish between this functional group and its tautonomer. In the absence of water, this addition of Grignard reagents to nitriles yields this functional group. Sodium cyanohydride is often employed to reduce this functional group to an amine in reductive amination. This functional group can be prepared via a hemiaminal intermediate by reacting a carbonyl group with a primary amine under acidic conditions, and it can be hydrolyzed back to the carbonyl. This functional group is sometimes also called a
Okay, so this is, I have this here.
If the
you want to pause?
not attached to...
I can wait till the end, but it's
just
is
functional group analogous to a carbonyl, but with a C-N double bond.
This is an imine.
Say that again.
Imine, I-M-I-N-E.
Yes, that's right. Parvatibai escaped this battle on a mare before meeting with Malhar Rao Holkar, who took her to Balabar. The losing side's plan was to draw their opponents into their French-made artillery, but this failed when Abdali dispatched light cavalry to cut off supplies. In contrast, the victors could more flexibly use
Battle of Panipat.
All right, so we're back on the board.
A test for meth and other alkaloid drugs that uses formaldehyde and this compound is the Marquis reagent. In the 19th century, German chemist Justus von Liebig believed that a country's prosperity could be based on the amount of this compound used. Removing organic residues can be done using hydrogen peroxide and this compound, which make up a solution called piranha etch. A vanadium oxide.
Sulfuric acid.
That is correct.
Nice.
The protagonist of this work believes that a cup of absinthe could take the place of all things he had enjoyed and forgotten, such as the evening papers and chestnut trees in bloom. This book begins and ends with the protagonist on the pine needle floor of the forest. After 2 characters in the novel make love, a woman nicknamed Rabbit is asked, "Did
For whom the bell tolls.
That is correct. Okay, question 10, after which the team that is trailing can employ a wild card. Tossup. The Fourth Symphony of one composer from this country begins with the string section playing numerous F major pizzicato chords, while a piano joins with a melody, followed by a bassoon shortly after. A cello concerto by another composer from this country begins with exactly 18 open string D.
Poland.
And that is correct. All right. So the computer is just marginally behind. So would the computer teams like to use a wild card?
So we have Scramble, Old, Machine Learning, German, Sensor, or Boring.
And Sensor with a C.
Yes.
So something has been removed.
Question: we can only use the wildcards twice, right?
Exactly.
I would like to wait.
Yeah, we can wait.
Okay, very well. Pressing on with Tossup 11. When his successor took the throne, J.T. Arbuset reported that a song claimed that death defilement antidotes were eaten. Important because his aunt confirmed his half-brother as his successor. Normally impossible because Dingane killed him. He is usually credited with the Mephikane disruption that occurred while consolidating his power. His nephew Ketshweo used his innovative bullhorn formation.
Shaka Zulu.
Shaka Zulu, yeah.
Yep. He currently serves as chair of Cerberus's Global Investments Division, and his son represented Arizona's 3rd District from 2011 to 2013. Dan Coates was selected to fill a Senate seat vacated by this man, who had previously defeated Birch Bayh in 1980. In 1992, he told William Figueroa.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Ah.
The HMS Chatham joined a ship with this name that was used on an early 1790s expedition led by George Vancouver. Before the Terra Nova expedition, Robert Falcon Scott laid an expedition named for this ship that visited in Antarctica. Henry Green and Robert Jouett participated in a 1611 mutiny on a ship with this name.
Discovery.
Okay, that is correct. A ratio involving the sums of masses of members of this class and the square of the sum of the square roots is approximately 2/3, as given by Coide's formula. A 2021 experiment involving one particle from this class found that its G factor differed from the standard model prediction by 4.2.
So what's the class including protons? Is that going to be boson?
Okay, I heard boson as an answer. That is incorrect. I'll very quickly go to the end of the question. For 10 points, name this class of elementary particles which are contrasted with quarks and contains the tau, the muon, and the electron.
Lepton.
And it does.
Sorry, I thought this was referring to the study that showed that protons are a different size than we think they are.
Tossup 15. During this period, Nikolai Rezanov failed to establish a trading port in 1805. During this period, a translation of Antedigründige Tafeln was published by Sugita in 1774. Chief Minister E.E. was assassinated in front of the Sakurada gate of its namesake castle in 1860.
Edo period.
And that is correct. All right, the humans are trailing. You have the option of using Scramble, Old, Machine Learning, German, Sensor, or Boring, if you would so like.
I would say that machine learning is probably a bad idea.
Well, you do have a machine learning expert on your team.
This is
But
true.
the machines are going to be way better than me. You know that. But the sensor could work, no? Since the models they're like, well, it depends what is censored.
They're probably relying on keywords to.
Can we also choose the model?
No. The computers get to choose which model would reference.
The German would be very interesting if it's not GPT-3. That one knows German, but the Quizbert doesn't know German.
Oh, interesting. Other people who don't know German include me.
I can translate.
I've studied. Okay, yeah, seriously, I've studied a little Danish. So like, there's gonna be some cognates, but
I feel that the sensor might be. Jordan, do you think the sensor is more pro-human or pro-machine?
I thought that it would be more pro-human.
Yeah.
But who knows what it would actually be.
interesting.
And the scramble, it depends. Is the word scrambled, or are the words replaced by other words? Because that could also be interesting. That could throw the computer really off. But if the order is scrambled, that just throws us humans off. But we don't know.
I don't think we're going to get that answer.
Yeah.
Any of you wanna choose a wild card?
So in that case, censored maybe sounds like
Yeah,
a
let's
potentially
try.
better option. Censored or German, whichever the two you think.
Censor is fun.
Okay,
All right.
try that.
Computer team, which system would you like to put up to the test?
How's your GPT-3 model do on censored stuff?
We'll take the challenge.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
I will do that.
Okay, Tossup 16, and for the things that are censored, I will just go, One of the world's largest pools is, Frying Pan Lake. In 2017...
I'm not buzzing. I'm just sharing
information. Granted, a 180-mile-long river.
That's going to be right. Okay.
Okay. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's New Zealand.
Okay.
New Zealand?
Yes, that is correct.
Wonderful.
Okay. Tossup 17. In a play, a servant in knows his master is in love because he wreathes his arms, relishes a love song, and sighs like a schoolboy. A different servant in remarks, fires that's closest kept burns most of all, shortly before pretending to be her master when accepting a love letter from Speed. The title characters of a play partly named for are Proteus and Valentine. A prince named...
It's Verona.
It's
right?
Verona, yeah.
Verona.
Yep, that's right. You even figured out that it was asking for the city. The second movement of an orchestral work by contains a horn solo in the notes of descending G, E flat, B flat, ascending E flat, G, F, followed by another motif in the same rhythmic structure with the notes E flat, B flat, G flat, E flat, D, but is played with a stopped horn technique. That work includes
Gustav Mahler.
That is incorrect. For 10 points, name of Capriccio Espagnol and Scheherazade.
Yeah. So Rimsky-Korsakov.
Yeah.
All right, and that is the end of this wildcard segment. The only signed version of this text is named for Alexander Bliss, although its earliest known version is named for John Nicolay, who served as its creator's secretary. This text was written to follow a 2-hour oration by Edward...
Yeah.
It's
Gettysburg Address, yes.
Yep, that is correct.
Yeah. Springfield, Illinois knowledge.
Number 20, after which the Skraeling team will have a chance for a wild card. David Soul portrayed this man in a BBC opera where he attempts to use the Gettysburg Address to escape torture with barbed wire if he doesn't read the effing cards. The former lawyer resigned from a city council after he paid
I buzzed.
Oh, sorry.
It's Jerry Springer.
That is correct.
Nice.
Computers, would you like to use a wild card?
Yes.
What do you think about German? I'm not saying that's what we want, but
I'm kind of curious about the machine learning wildcard. What is that supposed to be exactly? Are you able to explain?
Nope. You can infer what you would like.
The literal wildcard. What do you think,
Other
Patrick?
options are old questions, scramble, machine learning, German, and boring.
Maybe the obvious choice here would be machine learning.
Yeah, let's try that.
My time has come.
And which system would you guys like to use?
Honestly, I feel like the GPT-3 one is probably better.
All
We'll
right.
take the challenge.
All
Let's do
right.
it.
In September 2021, Tony Chan announced that this person would lead the Artificial Intelligence Initiative at a university located in Thuwul. At a 2016 tutorial, he asked if the speaker could contrast generative adversarial networks.
Juergen Schmidt.
That is correct. We appropriately cited him. Tossup. It was collected via paper HSF, requiring participants to copy the preamble of the U.S. Constitution and other fields to capture collocation effects. Those forms were completed by census takers and was first distributed on a 1990 CD-ROM and required creating new algorithms to segment and compress the images. A subsequent version, called Special Database 19, was transformed by adding Gaussian blur, extracting the region of interest, centering it, and resampling it to 28 by 28 pixels and
MNIST.
That is correct. For those of you in the class, hopefully you knew the answers to all of these questions. Selmer Bringsjord articulated strategies to judge if this were passed, including asking participants to write a short story. Lebesgue, Davis, and Morgenstern proposed an alternative, resolving referential ambiguities called the Winograd Schema Challenge. Mark Halpern's The Trouble...
I have to try it. The Turing test.
That is correct.
I was not brave enough to do that. I said it, but I didn't.
Humans did okay there. This actor portrayed King Mattress, who dreamed of getting abducted by aliens in a parody of Myst called Pissed. This Missourian shaved his head to appear opposite Nathan Lane in a 2009 revival of Waiting for Godot. One of his characters, a stand-in for Polyphemus, is a one-eyed KKK member who masks...
It's John Goodman.
That is correct.
Nice.
Although in that production, they said, got it, which annoyed me. A star appears over this figure's head as he sits next to a column wrapped in a red curtain in a painting by Juan de Pea, Diego Velázquez's former servant. A lone candle burns on an altar.
Juan de Pareja.
That is incorrect. Of a painting depicting this figure, who reaches for a palm branch as his assailant prepares to stab him with his sword. The two leftmost figures in a painting titled for this figure are taken from a Hans Holbein print of gamblers who fail to notice death and the devil in their presence. An oilskin covers a window in that painting housed in the Contarelli Chapel, along with paintings depicting the inspiration and martyrdom of this figure. Ambiguity exists over whether a pointing figure in a painting titled for this man is referencing himself or a young man counting coins. In that painting, Christ gestures toward the left as a ray of light from the upper right corner illuminates this figure for 10 points. Name this apostle who is summoned by Jesus in a painting by Caravaggio.
So it's going to be Saint
Matthew. Matthew, yeah, it's Matthew.
Yep, that is correct.
Juan de Pareja did paint himself, though, so the computer's guess wasn't completely out of bounds.
Cryptocurrencies may fulfill this scholar's vision of competing private currencies outlined in the denationalization of money. When discussing the design of Wikipedia, Jimmy Whale cited this thinker's concept of spontaneous order.
Frederick Hayek.
That is correct.
Okay. Frankfurt School makes sense.
I'm completely outmatched by the people here. This is, how do you people know so much stuff? This is insane. Like, huh? Like, how do you prepare for this? Do you prepare, or do you just like?
I do.
Is it just a okay?
I think that there's a certain point at which merely being curious and engaged, there's a threshold, just limited by people's time and attention and whatever.
The threshold is called turning 30.
I disagree. I strongly disagree. Speaking of somebody who's much better at this than I was when I was 30.
Right, but the mind starts needing supplementing at that point.
Well, what do? You read Wikipedia?
I mean, like, I write a daily blog where I write 3 mini essays about things that I discovered, usually sourced from Wikipedia, including some stuff that's come up now. I think I did write about the discovery. I couldn't remember the actual name of it, but some of the other ones too have come up.
Well, I'm deeply impressed, I have to say.
The track Bloom Dido features a collaborative album this man did with Charlie Parker titled Bird and This Artist, which was released by Verve Records. To better control his creative output, he founded DG Records in 1951, which published Burke's works titled after his middle name. He borrowed the chord structure from Paul Whiteman's Whispering for a 1945 work, Groovin' High, and around the same time,
Dizzy Gillespie.
That is correct.
DG, that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, it does.
This novel's main character uses the theory of relative maturity to submerge his personal dilemma of submitting to his place in destiny and thinks of a gateway reading dormir, or to sleep. In the final moments of this novel, the protagonist taps the word I for the first time, ending with a grammatical fiction.
Darkness at Noon.
That is correct.
I should have. I've read that.
Okay, computers, you have one more wild card at your disposal. Would you like to use it now? And if so, what should it be?
Yeah, we would like to use Wildcard. We're thinking German.
Which system would you like to use?
GPT-3.
I really suck at trivia, right? So should I attempt to like live translate, or should I wait until the end? Okay.
If it gets to the end, unless we've been able to pick up like cognates and everything, then
proper nouns. Presumably proper nouns won't be translated, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
So I will mention that these are not just questions translated into German. They also represent German-speaking culture, both a linguistic and cultural shift. Tossup number 1. Sein Kommentar über die wahre und falsche Religion.
His commentary about true and false religion is dedicated to French King Franz I. The Reformators wanted to get him to convert. Philip I from Hessen
den Abendmahlschrei beizulegen. Sprach seine letzten Wörter. Sie können den Lieb töten, aber nicht die Seele. Kurz bevor sein Lieb in der Schlacht bei Kappeln in Stücke gerissen würde. Für 10 Punkte, wer kam 1519 als Leutpriester am Großmünster?
Aldrich's Wing.
I will be generous and count that as correct. GPT-3 sometimes has tokenization issues.
Before you start,
Artikel in Dezember 1890 in der Review of Reviews argumentierte Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
In an article in December 1990, in the Review of Reviews, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle argumented that the here demonstrated thing was a awesome help with the diagnosis of tuberculosis, but no cure. His clinic, Sauerbruch, opened his clinic in 1929. Omnicellular was from the founder of his pathological institute, Rudolf Virchow, given.
I think it's Coke. Oh, it's not.
Coke is mentioned in the question.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is. I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay.
But the computer thinks the same. If they keep on thinking this.
Christian Drosten bekannt ist ein Krankenhaus, dessen Name auf Französisch Barmherzigkeit bedeutet.
Charité.
That is correct.
Oh, okay. So they want the place.
Ein jüdischer Charakter in
Jewish character in this series is being from the youngest son of Willy Brandt, Matthias Brandt, played. This character was killed by a maid under the influence of a help in the stable. The nickname Fritz Huckert was the nickname. The murder of August Banda by Greta Overbeck was by Oberst Wenst instigated.
That's the only German show I can think of. Oh, Tom Twyker. What's it?
Die in der 30er.
Babylon Berlin.
That is correct.
Okay. Oh, okay. I haven't even seen a little bit of that. Yeah. I was pretty sure it's one my husband was watching to learn German.
I live in German culture. I knew none of these things.
A Thracian goddess of this activity was the dedicatee of a night festival involving torchlit horse races known as the Bindia. Along with skiing, a Norse god of this activity who lives in Ydalar is the subject of a ritual where oaths are sworn on his ring. A folkloric motif involving this activity typically involves figures like Gwyn ap Nudd or Odin leading a retinue of ghosts and spirits. Hyrieus fathered a hero associated with this activity after Zeus and Hermes urinated on a wineskin and told him to bury it. The constellation Scorpio was created after a scorpion stung and killed a hero of this activity.
Hunting, I assume?
Yes, that is correct.
Nice.
The refrain of a hymn titled for one of these places closes with the lines, "And the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known." In Song of Solomon, the speaker compares his spouse to a place of this type enclosed, from whose name in Avestan the word paradise is derived. In one of these places, by the brook Kidron, Simon Peter cuts off Malchus's.
Okay, yeah.
It's a garden.
Garden, yeah.
But the computer got there first. A tipsy character, after making a night of it, calls her father the Prince of Darkness for plying him with Spanish Burgundy. A character in this play tells a Euripides-quoting man that there are two things necessary to salvation, money and gunpowder. In one scene from this play, Bill Walker causes...
It's Major Barbara, right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Tossup 29. The arts company pinned in the margins created a series of live performances based on this poem titled Fairfield. In this poem, 3 wooden poles help protect the tree of charity from covetousness, the flesh, and the devil.
Piers Plowman.
That is correct. The energy relation with this quantity includes an additional additive squared term compared to the mass energy relation. In curved spacetime, the covariant divergence of the stress energy tensor T equals 0, corresponding to the local conservation of energy and this quantity, which two quantities like space and time form a famous 4-vector. By Noether's theorem, space translation symmetry corresponds to the conservation law for this quantity, which was originally defined by Newton's third law of motion. Newton's second law can be defined using the time derivative of this quantity. The change in this quantity over time is called impulse.
Yeah.
10 points, what quantity defined as velocity?
Momentum.
Yeah.
Yes, that is correct. The humans were trailing. They would have an opportunity to use a wild card, but computers are trailing, so no wild card opportunity. Tossup. This essay, whose later editions included large additions and an epistle to the Quakers, prompted a response by Reverend Charles Inglis.
Emerson.
The essay opens by criticizing the confounding of the concepts of society and government, and later cites 1 Samuel 8.
It might be civil disobedience.
Okay, you want to go with
civil disobedience.
-5.
Sorry.
And for 10 points, name the 1776 essay promoting the American Revolution, a pamphlet by Thomas Paine.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Common sense.
And that is correct.
All right.
And so the question is, can the computer catch up enough to get another wild card? Or sorry, for the humans to exercise.
We can be generous and give the computer another wild card.
I would rather not.
I like that idea. Let's do German again.
I literally do nothing. So I rely on you.
Let's do German. That just overwhelmed the human team.
The malfunction of this pathway can lead to hepatic encephalopathy, which can be treated with LOLA because it increases the level of this pathway's end product in the body. Transamination of acetate by peridooxamine is the reason for the net gain of NADH in this pathway.
Citric acid cycle.
That is incorrect.
All right.
Okay, so we can hold off.
Pyruvate or lactic acid or
Yeah, there's a lot of options.
To form Arjun succitate. The first metabolic cycle to be discovered, this pathway's final reaction produces ornithine and the namesake product. For 10 points, name this pathway occurring primarily in the liver that produces a namesake nitrogenous compound present in urine.
Urea cycle.
This artist depicted a woman with a child being embraced by a formerly imprisoned soldier in the order of release. Another child looks up at the title object.
Buzz, it's Malay.
That is correct.
I wasn't sure if you meant the English Malay or the French Malay.
I knew, though.
Tossup 34. An important dimensionless biophysical variable is a one-sided area of these structures per unit ground area, known as their area index. Identifying the source species of these structures relies on determining components such as venation, usually palmate or pinnate. That is correct.
Interesting.
Okay, Tossup 35. A character in this work wants a hairbrush with stiff bristles, not for brushing, but for spanking. That character in this work has a skull inscribed with the motto, Et in Arcadio Ego, and has a sister named Julia.
It's not Blood Meridian. That's a rifle. It has it on Blood Meridian, but I don't think better.
Okay, -5.
Yeah.
Sebastian Flight and Charles Ryder.
Okay.
Yeah.
What novel by Evelyn Waugh?
That's right. Yeah.
No worries.
That's what the first volume of it is called.
Right. Head revisited.
It is. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
In a poem from this collection, the speaker resolves in his 41st year to tell the secret of my nights and days while wandering in paths untrodden. A poem in this collection describes a tree with joyous leaves whose look rude, unbending, lusty makes the speaker think of himself. The speaker of a poem in this collection claims that the body contains the start of
Leaves of
populous age.
grass.
That is correct.
Oh, okay.
All right, the computer's mounting a comeback.
I was thinking structure
It
lad.
is still possible to win. A red-shirted man climbs over a wall to meet a woman under a statue of Venus and Cupid in one painting by this artist. A man stabs himself while a partially nude woman faints next to him in this artist's
Jean-Honoré Fragonard.
That is correct. All right, still possible to win. Let's see if the computer can pull it off. An impenetrable concrete-esque soil layer formed by the deposition and dissolution of this element's cation is called caliche. Anorthite is the end member of the solid solution series characterized by an increasing percentage of this element. Massive structures composed of a hydrous form of this element's sulfate were discovered in the cave of the crystals in the Nika mine. This element is the one replaced by dolomitization and is a component of gypsum. It is surrounded by a sodic rim.
I buzzed. Magnesium?
-5.
Oh, fuck, sorry.
For 10 points, what element commonly substitutes with magnesium and is found in limestone?
Yeah.
It was actually calcium.
I ruled it out because it was showing as
Calcium.
yeah. I actually ruled it out for that reason.
So what sometimes happens with GPT-3 is that it has some invisible characters, and it doesn't get printed here, but the program didn't match it to calcium as a result. Penultimate toss-up, 39. A comedic sequel to this film starred George Siegel and saw Lee Patrick reprise her role as the secretary Effie.
Yeah, it's the Maltese Falcon.
In the novel, The Literary Conference, Cesar Ara uses a wasp to acquire this author's cells and clones him in an attempt to take over the world. A character created by this author frequently carries a candelabra around her old and darkened mansion located at Doncleys 815. The protagonist of a novel by this author travels with a black Gladstone suitcase containing ham sandwiches, a razor, and a copy of Don Quixote. A character hired to write the memoirs of General Laurent falls in love with the title needs of Suelo before turning into
It's Vargas Llosa, right? Yeah.
So, Neha, I will leave the choice of the final wild card to you. We have old and boring.
I haven't actually looked at which system does better for which, so.
Right, and so that's why I wanted you to do that, because I have some sense. Old questions are questions from that are on the internet somewhere. So the humans or the computer could just as easily have read them. So who knows? Boring questions, I clicked the random page on Wikipedia and wrote a question about random Wikipedia pages.
Oh my lord, these are both terrible.
Have you guys read all of Wikipedia?
I feel like it's more likely the computer has both read lots of questions and read all of Wikipedia.
Let's do old, because there's maybe a chance that y'all have encountered these questions.
Okay.
My ulterior motive is for y'all to win.
It's very kind.
So I want your students to succeed.
Between Quizbert and GPT-3,
I don't think Quizbert would be well suited for questions it hasn't really seen.
These are old Quiz Bowl questions. That's all I will say.
Oh, okay.
then should we try that? Should we try Quizbert? Because presumably y'all have trained on a large body of content questions or Quiz Bowl questions.
Yeah, we can try that.
All right, so we're going with Quizbert, old. All right, 205 to 205.
I hope you regularized a hell lot. Like
All right.
So what's the format of this tiebreaker?
Really scared of
so 3 questions, and at the end of those 3 questions, if the score is still tied at the end of those 3 questions, we still have the boring questions. Toss-up 1. At the end of this war, thousands of prisoners were killed by being thrown into sinkholes known as foibe. During this war, a guerrilla force was targeted by the unsuccessful Operation Knight's Move, which paradropped thousands of troops in the raid on Drvar. At the end of this war, Draja Mihailovic was executed for leading a group of royalist guerrilla fighters known as the Chetnits. During this war, the kidnapping of Miko's fourth son.
World War II.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Owing in part to his failed experiment of mixing tempera and oil paints, this artist never completed a painting in the Hall of the 500. One of his sketches featured a single dragon among an array of cats and horses in various poses.
Paolo Veronese.
That is incorrect.
Answer incorrectly just to make it interesting.
I would not.
That's a non-quizzer speaking.
Yeah, for 10 points, name this artist of the Vitruvian Man and the Last Supper.
It's Leonardo, right?
Leonardo. Okay.
Yep.
Leonardo da Vinci.
Right. Yes, that is correct.
Wait, can we switch the models midway through? I think my model has seen these.
Tossup, the last. The protagonist of this novel is the title subject of a 2013 counter investigation by Kamel Daoud.
It's the Stranger.
Nice.
And that is correct. So, to the folks in the class, these were questions in the development set. So, if you retrained your system after tuning on all of the questions in the development set, you would have seen them. But if you just used the development set for hyperparameter tuning, then you would not have seen them.
Can you read one of the boring questions? Because
I
thought you kind of knew, you people know like everything, but there is like a
Well, we
specific.
said everything from like supporting characters in K dramas that I mean Wikipedia is enormous.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, let's do that, and let's try the GPT retrieval system, and we'll do the boring questions. I guess I should really say random. These things do not have the notability in Western culture that the other things that we asked about do. Shortly after he appointed Osai Gabovo Ihoya as his chief of staff, rumors swirled that he would leave the PDP. In collaboration with Omo in Oba in Edoko Uko Acapulco and Oba Aware II, he declared that Benin City would host a museum.
Oba Uware too.
That is incorrect. Would host a museum for looted artifacts. He resigned from Afrinvest to run for his current position and formerly was the founding secretary of the Africa Chamber of Commerce. For 10 points, name this People's Democratic Governor of Edo Province.
Edo Province. I do not know the provincial governor of Nigeria.
Okay, this is Godwin Obaseki.
Of course.
It might have fit into the other Edo.
Tossup. This train station saw severe overcrowding on 12th of October 1974 during the Children's Day festivities in the Quinta de Boa Vista, causing deaths and hundreds of injuries. Mario Baselli and Jose Paulo de Bim Sao
Brazil,
were
obviously.
elected to redesign the station in 2000.
Sal Cristoveo Station.
This technique was first conducted on November 3rd, 1919, with the support of Hiram N. Weinberg at Mount Sinai in New York. Both its namesake and William Carey initially proposed using color grol, but instead used oxygen, where manometer readings less than 100 suggest no obstruction. Later improvements switched carbon dioxide for oxygen and a chymograph for the pressure readings. For 10 points, name this tubal insufflation test for checking tubal patency and infertility.
Saline infusion test.
That is incorrect.
I don't know this.
This is the Rubin test. Okay, and that is the game. So thank you so much to both the students who put in a huge amount of effort this semester. Thank you so much to the human victors today. So congrats. And thank you so much to my teaching assistant, Neha, who did so much over the semester just to make sure that everything was put together. Was there anything surprising? Were there things that you thought that the system should have gotten, but it didn't, or vice versa?
For me, I think the machine learning, that wildcard was a game changer. But then we had the German wildcard, which kind of shifted the balance. That was definitely tough, without a natural German speaker. Even the human team, even though they have Yannick trying to translate real time, it's just too much information overload. Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised on how well GPT-3 did on the German questions. I thought that would be a complete gimme for the humans. I thought that the systems would look a lot like
what they looked like in the past. And so they would be completely flummoxed by German. But GPT-3 did relatively well.
Didn't it hold like the zero shot state of the art in several translation domains?
Yeah.
I think English and German, that's like their forte.
Did anyone try to like do anything like a retrieval? Oh no, you all did retrieval, but just from the data sets, right? Did anyone try to use like Google as a retrieval step, or maybe just like index Wikipedia or something like this?
So there were a number of teams that wanted to do that, but like we had a fixed deadline, and some teams didn't get their systems working in time and to be submitted. And so yes, people wanted to do that, but not everybody was able to get their systems finished in time. And so you know how it goes at the end of the semester.
One of the systems that we were developing downloaded Wikipedia articles on the fly to read, but that was just too slow. It would take like minutes to answer a question, so we just scrapped that one.
Yeah, that was also the reason we focused on the closed book question answering aspect of it. Trying to answer something without the full knowledge. So like in the beginning of these questions, and there's a lot of contextual knowledge for the answer, but it's not contained there. So like our strategy for at least for GPT-3 was we provide that knowledge, and then we had our data sets where we say question at the beginning, then we at the very end we're like the answer is whatever the answer is associated with the question, and that helps it like kind of autofill the answer part during the training and the evaluations process. But for our project, we just focused on some of the popular data sets out there, like Trivia QA, Canta, and we kind of evaluated GPT-3 on that, see how it performs.
So you were
right. If I remember correctly, at your end of question accuracy was in the high 70s, low 80s before you added in the retrieval component, and then you got into the 90s. And so then it's just a question of can you get it faster than Yogesh and Victoria?
Yeah, it would be interesting also the other way around, like to use GPT-3 as a retrieval mechanism, because it knows so much, right? It like, because if you try to provide the knowledge, you really rely on this knowledge being in your data set somewhere. But given that GPT-3, it just knows like all of the internet essentially. You could sort of try to query it for relevant information, and then though I don't know if that would be fast enough because you'd have to do it like repeatedly, and it takes like 1 or 2 seconds per inference, right?
Yeah.
And we had a team in the chat that says that their team used the Wikipedia knowledge graph to find Wikipedia articles that were linked to named entities in the question.
Isn't that sort of what Watson did? I have no clue what Watson did.
Well, yeah. So Watson did a bunch of stuff and then fed it into a logistic regression system to re-rank the answers. And so, yes, that was part of it. And they also did a lot of syntactic parsing and stuff like that.
Well, I enjoyed the wildcards a lot. I think that like the team behind should always get the wildcards and not just twice.
Well, if I had more time and more creativity and could have come up with more wild cards.
Next time, you should have them do the question, do a set of questions in Pig Latin.
Oh yeah, so that's a good suggestion. What are other wild cards that we should have done?
Or just scramble the order of letters within the word. Like first and last letter are the same.
Leave away white space.
I was looking forward to the scramble and are as Cuddy Dock Dry Gypsy in 4 kept Moth Museum Sark ships this town.
But have you tested this at all? This wildcard with the system?
It actually does okay. Both systems, they take longer to answer, but they still get to the answer. And I think that probably also would have been true of the humans.
And have the students been, because sometimes I see like the system was like GPT-3 mask, so the students knew the wildcards and were able to prepare.
No, they submitted their systems and then we ran it on these data. The students hated me because we had them create Dockers and things like that, and so that was not so fun.
That's okay. Prepares them for the real world.
So computer team, like, is there a wildcard that you wish we had done that we didn't do.
The old questions were pretty good. I mean, if they were from the training set, it would probably be a killer.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. So I wanted to be a little bit tricky.
Yeah, I
Or
can't
maybe
really.
like common sense questions. Like sometimes there's like questions that you can ask that grammatically it's challenging for a model to predict the answer because the grammar is just
common
so
sense would be
off-putting.
good. Yeah, so like questions where the answer is a glass of water or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I guess math reasoning would be another one.
Wordplay type questions.
Yeah.
Take the second letter of this and then switch it with the second letter of this other thing, and then you get this other
Metaphors.
Where all proper nouns are replaced by synonyms. Or all titles, yeah.
In the chat, we have a wild card where everything is negated.
But yeah, some models really struggle with that. That's what we noticed in our research.
Yeah, there was a team who focused on crossword style clues and it would have been nice to somehow get them into the mix here.
This was fun. I liked it.
I hope that it was. This is the first time that at the end of regulation questions, the computer was not behind. And so even though the tiebreaker didn't break for the class, this is still the best that it has ever done.
I'm very excited.
Okay, that's it. Thank you for watching this far. Humanity has staved off defeat for another day. If you like this sort of thing, please visit quanta.org to find out more about these events, to find tools, code, and get in on the fun.